Hey gang, welcome to another party with the OMB eRegulations Policy Library team. Displaying work from Sprint Linguine, wrapping up this week. This is probably going to be our last Sprint demo for a little while. We're wrapping up our funding on this project. It's been a tremendous pleasure working with the team. There's going to be a second round that we're working on moving forward with many new features and fun development going on later this summer, but we'll probably be wrapping up and kind of just doing some maintenance work in the next couple weeks. So this will be our last sprint demo for a little while. I'm Will Sullivan, working with the team on the OMB eRegs project. This is our bi-weekly sprint demo. That music was the A-Team theme. We work with the A-Team at OMB. If you've been wondering that, I think I could explain that in a couple of these demos, but that's why we use the theme music. Everything we do at 18F is open source, so this is an opportunity for us to share the work that we're doing, gather feedback, and create an artifact and record of the work that we're doing. And with that, we will jump into the demo, and I will toss it to CM, who's going to talk about, well, I'll advance the slide to the sprint demo, and then CM's going to talk about admin UI changes.
Thank you, Will. All right, let me share my screen. So we're going to show you a lot today. We got a lot done, but we'll start with the admin interface. So right now I've got open the old code. So this is the code that's on the production site right now. And if you look at it, you'll see that there are some contrast issues. By that, I mean color contrast. So we've got a lot of pastels throughout. We have a lot of dark color on grayish or darkish text, or light colors on light text. And this is an accessibility issue, particularly for folks who are on the color blindness spectrum. It's hard to see the contrast to read the text easily. And so what we've done is, throughout the admin, switched over to a different theme. This theme is based on the United States Web Design Standards, their color palette, which is created to ensure 508 compliance and other accessibility benefits. So throughout the admin, we'll see that it is these darker colors with higher contrast in terms of light on dark, etc. So similarly, if we jump over to, again, this is the old code. If we go to a specific requirement and scroll down to the topics field, it was a tag field. So we could do things like say, all right, budget is an existing tag, but we could also add arbitrary tags. So I just typed in a bunch of junk, a bunch more junk. And this is useful if you have a blog or something similar, because you can just create tags at will. But for this particular scenario, this doesn't help too much and encourages lots and lots of topics. So one of the things that Tom asked us to do was to remove the ability to add arbitrary tags, to require users go through the topics section to create a topic before it can be used. And so that's what we've done. This is the new code. If I scroll down to the topics section, I see that it matches agencies and agency groups, and that it has 2 multi-selects, and I can move content between them. Importantly, I can't add a new topic anywhere. One of the last things that we did with regards to the user interface of the admin is we fixed several problems around keeping track of the history of elements. So users can go back in time and revert versions of the policies, requirements, topics, basically all of the key players. They can go through and see a history of the changes. But when we do things like radically alter a field, so like this time we changed topics pretty substantially, how it's working behind the scenes. Sometimes we'll add a new field, we might rename a field, we might move something from, for example, move something from a requirement to a policy, something like that. In those situations, the history of that object can be confusing because it doesn't have the same fields. So what we've done is we will, when trying to revert a requirement or a policy or what have you, we'll compare the schema for what we're trying to revert to what the data actually is. And if they mismatch, we give a warning to the user that says that this was created before the current fields were finalized. Be very careful when reverting. And the idea here is that this still allows users to go back in time, but when we add new fields or change their names or things like that, we want to warn the user that something needs your attention here. And with that, those are the major changes to the admin. I think I will pass back to Will now.
Great. And next we have Tig talking about the data changes.
Thanks, Will. I don't think you're sharing to the whole group right now. There we go. Thank you. So we made a number of data changes during this sprint. We added well-structured data about agencies and agency groups that we got from OMB's IT dashboard. That's what's populating the agency and agency group sections that you might have spotted in CM's demo. And once we had those, we used the information in the unstructured impacted entity field that that is in our existing data to attempt to infer from that what agencies and agency groups are being referred to. Our success rate with that was reasonable but not excellent. So there's some data cleanup still to be done there. But we populated a few thousand requirements with the proper agency or agency group relationships. We took the non-public field, which was used to determine whether or not a policy should be shown to the public in the front-end public-facing version, and renamed it so that it's more intuitively understandable. We changed it to public rather than non-public, and now you check it if it's supposed to be public and leave it unchecked if it's not, rather than having to flip that logic in your head whenever you're making an edit to that field. We also added that field to each individual requirement so that now, rather than always inheriting from their related policy, each requirement can itself be marked as public or non-public. Finally, we masked some values in the impacted entity field as it's displayed in the public-facing UI because some of them aren't useful. Examples such as NA, none, not applicable, and so on were deemed not to be useful to any users, so those just don't display in the UI. And that's it for the data changes. I'll pass it back to Will.
Sweet. And now we'll jump to UI changes with Mike. You will present.
Thank you. I shall present. It's going to be great. Thanks. All right. If you can't see my screen or if you can't see what I'm talking about, feel free to yell at me and let me know. But yes, some UI changes, a couple, quite a bit of fun things kind of went through. So here they are listed out. So I will go through a little bit of each one. So we have a policy link from the requirements metadata. We talked about this, and I'm being redirected, and there's a server error. Right, of course there is, because, one moment. Let's try that link. Great. That is not what I wanted. So one quick second. Let's try clicking this link here and redirecting. It's gonna happen. No, it's not, but that's okay. I'll sing you a song and I will make it work this way. So if we say, I will do this. If we were to say an item such as data centers, that's great. Okay, so we're gonna skip that one for the moment, and I will try to figure. Oh, I have another idea. 1 second. Was I smart enough to leave my local one running? We will all wait in awkward silence to see if my local one starts up. It does, hooray. That's great. Now let's see if it works when I do it that way. As it's thinking. While we're waiting on that to truck along, one of the other items that, well, actually it's working, so I will search, and we will be back up to speed, possibly. Nothing like a live demo to make everyone squirm. That's great. Okay, so we're going to skip that one, but we did a couple of things. So one of the items was within the cards when there was a policy listed within a requirement, we now have a link to that item. So yes, exactly like it says, it will then link directly to that. So we also did some elements around results and the number of results. So I don't know how I'm going to show you that as well. I will see if maybe another one works, but I have a feeling maybe it does not. But we're listing the number of the results by saying like so many of your results have been found, or the number of which there are. So like 9 out of, you know, X amount of requirements have been found. And then there was also a no result. So before we had a element where if there wasn't results, we still said, you know, 0 of 0 or something along those lines without actually letting the user know that they needed to do something. So now that there is a no results, which I'm going to see if maybe it works, and I have a strong feeling it's not going to. A no results alert would be happening there. The app title changed. So before we had nothing that would work here. This now actually works as a homepage link. And we have the correct title up there that we had discussed in the thread on Slack. We also have mobile layout as well. So if this is maybe not a great way to go about it, but you get the general idea that it is squishy and moves at different sizes. So this also applies to elements inside, but as you can tell, we're having some issues with that at the moment, but never fear, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we spent a lot of time getting things responsive so that we could yeah, meet that requirement as well. And I'm really proud of the work that Teresa did with that. And not only that, that she did with improved browser support. So again, let me know if you can't see my screen. You can't, but you can see this screen now. So this is just an example, a small glimpse into the amazing work that Teresa has done around whipping the app into shape over Internet Explorer. And she's even diving deep into the recesses of legacy IE browsers, IE7 and above. And she's doing amazing work, and this is a glimpse of that. So between that and the mobile work, kudos to her as well. So after tripping through all of that, that is the end of me sharing my time. And I will now turn it over to Carolyn or Will. I'm not sure who it's going back to.
We can go straight to me.
All right.
Okay, so I am Carolyn. I was supposed to be presenting this. So we're going to talk a little bit about research. I'm the UX researcher designer, just joined the team a couple weeks ago. And mostly what I've been doing is been getting my feet wet and learning about the research that's been conducted prior, trying to understand that, and then also getting ready for the next phase and trying to think ahead about what's going to happen. So as part of reviewing the past research, what I have done is started synthesizing some of that into some long-term documentations. And the first one of that is I created some user archetypes for the different user groups for the policy library, and those are public. They're on the GitHub repo. If you go over to the wiki, and you can see that the primary user that we've been focusing on so far is the agency implementer, And this is the person who's responsible for understanding and complying with OMB policy. And the user archetypes are basically just descriptions of, generalized descriptions based on the research of, what are they trying to do? What are their goals? Know what the policies and requirements are that apply to their program, what kinds of things they do. So they want to focus on the topic of policy or their area of research. Generally focuses more on newer policies, and then what their pain points are. And this sort of helps be a conversation point and inform our conversations as a team in what we're doing and making sure we're focused on solving problems for our users. The other thing I've been doing has been planning how we are going to start tackling some of the research in the next phase. And the first thing that we will likely be doing is what I'm calling a framing questions workshop. So when we do research, we're trying to find answers to questions we have about the users, about what the product should do, what's difficult for users, what needs are we not meeting. And if you get involved in research for a little while, you pretty much get to the point where you want to research all the things. And that is not something you can do. So what we want to do is prioritize. And so this workshop allows everybody to contribute, to find out what do we believe we know about our users. Everybody brainstorms, and then we rank those through the synthesis of whether, is this an assumption? Is this belief about our users? Does it have to be true for this to be the correct solution? And what are we most sure about? So we can look forward to that. And basically what that allows us to do is it allows us to prioritize so that we get to learn what's the most important research for us to focus on and what is something that we can maybe spend a little bit less time on. And so with that, I will pass back to Will.
Awesome. So our next demo will probably be sometime in July after the next bucket of funding gets approved. We're going to keep the plane in the sky, but won't be doing a lot of tremendous active development. So if you want to follow along, you can hop on the GitHub, post comments there, send us emails, and you can also call in. And we're going to jump to a conference line. Basically, everybody calls into a teleconference, and we ask questions, talk about our weekend plans, hug, and say how great everything is. Speaking of which, it's really been a tremendous pleasure working with you all. This has been a really fun project, and I'm really looking forward to the next phase and seeing all the cool things we get to do. And with that, we will jump on the teleconference line. You can go ahead and close this YouTube video. It will stop streaming. I'll hold this slide for a little bit just so people can dial in. But that number 2 box, just go ahead and dial in. And little request from DJ JD out in the streaming watching crowd, so to play us out. One more time. One more time. I wanna celebrate. Oh yeah, alright, stop the dancing. One more time, I wanna celebrate. Oh yeah, alright, stop the dancing. One more time, I wanna celebrate. Oh yeah, alright, stop the dancing.